Okay, hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is your tutor, Mr. Chireshe. We want to go through Biology 2015 Section A. Biology 2015 Section A. So I hope you'll be able to get me loud and clear. Then if you have questions, leave the questions in the comment section below. If it's the first time for you to watch my YouTube channel, please subscribe, like the video and share the video. And for more lessons, you can contact me on 0972 36 50 11 for frequent online classes for biology, mathematics, chemistry, and physics. Okay, I want us to go through these biology questions. So section A, question 1. You answer all questions in the spaces provided. So you're supposed to answer the questions in the space provided as it is being shown on the question there. Okay, so you're supposed to show what you're supposed to show answers in the spaces provided. Okay, so for questions A, figure 1.1 and figure 1.2 shows a structure of specialized cells in plants. Okay, so from the look of the diagram, these are guard cells. Then if you are to check this guard cell here, is showing that the stomata is closed. Then this one is showing that the stomata is open. Okay, so that's what you need to know about these two. There is the one with the open stomata, the other one with a closed stomata. So question A, identify the cells labeled A and B. Identify the cells labeled A and B. So if you look at the cells labeled A, that is not the guard cell. So A is not a guard cell. A is the epidermal cell, which is near the guard cell. The epidermal cell and the guard cell are both found in the lower epidermis. So this cell labeled A is called the epidermal cell. Then if you look at cell B, that is now the guard cell which they are pointing. So cell B is the guard cell. So here is the epidermal cell, here is the guard cell. A, Roman numeral 2, identify the parts labeled C and D. Identify the parts labeled C and D. So the part labeled C, those are chloroplasts. So in the cell which we are seeing there, the guard cell, those dark dots are the chlorophyll. Then these round things which are grayish, these are the nucleuses or the nuclei of these cells. So these dark spots, those are chloroplasts. Okay, so the C are the chloroplast, then D, that's the cytoplasm. The nucleus is found inside the cytoplasm, so that's a cytoplasm. Okay, then B1, which figure shows a closed stomata? Which figure show a closed stomata? So it is figure 1.1. Figure 1.1 is the one showing the closed stomata. As you can see, there is no space between these two guard cells here. It is closed. So figure 1.1 is showing the closed stomata. Explain how the opening of a stomata is brought about. Explain how the opening of a stomata is brought about. Okay, so the opening of the stomata is mostly influenced by two factors. One, the gaining of water. When the stomata gains water, they swell up, they start swelling. Now the swelling of the stomata due to excess gain of water, it makes their caved shape to be formed, and hence opening the stomata. Once they start losing water, they become flaccid and the stomata is closed. So the opening of the stomata is brought about by the gain, or by the excess gain of water, which leads to the guard cells to swell and leaving the stomata open. Apart from that, the stomata also is opened when it is exposed to light intensity, high light intensity. So it automatically opens up when it is exposed to high light intensity, and it closes up at night. So in this case, since we're focusing on the opening of the stomata, we just say the stomata is brought up. The opening of the stomata is brought about by the exposure of the leaf to light intensity, as well as by excess gain of water, which makes the Gardner cells to swell, leaving the stomata open. That is the answer. For you're supposed to explain a paragraph just like I've said it, for you to get the 3 marks. You're supposed to do do hard work. Okay, question 2. Figure 2.1 shows a section through a human tooth. So it shows a section through a human tooth. So if you look at this diagram, figure 2.1 shows a section through a human tooth. Okay, then F, you are supposed to identify these parts even before you read the question. That helps you to study better. So F, if you look at F is the enamel. F is the enamel. Okay, F is the enamel. Another space there. Then G, that is the dentine. G is the dentine. Then H is the pulp cavity. Then I is the cement. A, Roman numeral 1. State the names of the parts labeled F and G. State the names of the part labeled F and G. So F is the enamel, G is the dentine. F is the enamel, G is the dentine. Okay. Then okay, so at F put enamel. Enamel, that is ENAMEL, enamel. Then G is the dentine, DENTINE, dentine. Okay. Then we go to Roman numeral 2. Explain the functions of the parts labeled H and I in figure 2.1. So the part labeled H we said that's a pulp cavity. The function of the pulp cavity, it contains the blood cells which supplies nutrients to the tooth. It also contains the nerves which detect pain in the tooth. So H contains the nerve cells to supply the tooth with nutrients, also contains the nerve cells to detect the pain and send to the brain or the central nervous system. Then that is about H. Then I is the cement which is used to anchor the teeth into the jaw. It embed, or you can use the word embed, it embeds the tooth into the jaw. It makes the teeth or the tooth to be stuck into the jaw so that it should not be shaking or moving. That's a function of the E, the I. So I is the cement which is used to stuck the tooth into the dentine, into the jaw. Okay. Then we look at question B. Explain how tooth decay is brought about. Okay, tooth decay is brought about. First of all, tooth decay, this is the damage done to the tooth enamel. So the destruction of the tooth enamel, that is called tooth decay. This is brought about by eating too much sugar food, the food that contains sugars. So the sugars, they are the breeding sites, or they are suitable for the development of the bacteria, because bacteria uses the sugars to produce the acid which wears away the enamel. The enamel, it is the white bone which we see when you smile. That's the enamel. Okay. So the tooth decay is brought about by eating sugar containing food materials, and excess sugar containing food materials. Now the sugar is a breeding site for bacteria, where the bacteria use the same sugars to produce an acid which wears away the enamel. Okay, apart from that, tooth decay is brought about by opening bottles, drink bottles, either beer, with your teeth. Okay, so it can be brought about by many ways. Not brushing teeth after a meal. That is also one of the ways it can brought about tooth decay. Okay, then we talk about Roman numeral 2. Suggest 2 ways of preventing tooth decay. So you can prevent tooth decay by avoiding eating food with a lot of sugar. So eat food with low sugar content. In other language, eat sugar or eat food with low sugar content. Then also brush the teeth regularly with fluoride toothpaste, a toothpaste which contains fluoride. Do not open the bottles with your teeth. Those are the ways to prevent tooth decay. Okay, so next, question 3. Figure 3.1 shows a cassava plant with root tubers. Okay, so question 1, A, Roman numeral 1. Which common food nutrient is stored in the root tuber? The common food nutrient stored in the root tuber is the carbohydrate. So carbohydrates like a glucose, especially in this case. Okay, so we keep the food which is the nutrient which is stored into the root tuber are carbohydrates, specifically in form of starch. So starch is the nutrient which is stored in the root tubers. Then B, state where this food in the root tuber was manufactured. Food is mostly manufactured in green leaves. So the food is manufactured in green leaves during the process of photosynthesis. So state where this food in the root tubers was manufactured. It was manufactured in the green leaves of the cassava. Explain how this food manufactured in A2 above found itself in storage form in the root tubers. So during the process of photosynthesis, the food which is produced or the nutrient produced is glucose, which is a soluble material. Now, for transportation purpose, this glucose is transported just the way it is as glucose to where they're supposed to be kept, in this case into the root tubers, by the process called translocation. Then when it reaches there, that's going to be converted to the storage form, which is starch. Okay, so it found itself in the root tuber because it has been translocated from the leaves to the root tuber by the process called translocation. Then converted to starch as a storage form of sugars in plants. B, state the nutrient in the soil which is necessary for photosynthesis. The nutrient in the soil which is necessary for photosynthesis is the H2O, water. Water is a nutrient which is necessary for photosynthesis, and it is found in the soil. Remember, photosynthesis is the reaction between carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight energy and chlorophyll. Okay. Then question Roman numeral 2 suggests how this nutrient is taken from the soil to the leaves. Excuse me. So you suggest how this nutrient is taken from the soil to the leaves. So the nutrients we're talking about here is water. So you need to suggest how water is removed from the soil to the leaves. So water is removed from the soil by the process called the osmosis, where the water is absorbed from the soil by the root hair cells. The root hair cells then send this water into the xylem vessel, and the xylem vessel, with the help of transpiration, transport water from the roots to the leaves where they are needed to photosynthesis. For photosynthesis to occur. So the water found itself in the leaves by the help of the process called transpiration. Okay, so the answer needed here is only water is absorbed from the soil by the special type of diffusion called the osmosis by the root hair cell. Then the root hair cell send this water to the xylem cell, which transport water to the leaves where they are needed with the help of a process called the transpiration. Question 4, coming from ecology. So figure 4.1 shows a food web in a given ecosystem. So we have the cabbage, grasshopper, bird, rabbit, human, lion, and the vulture. Identify any primary consumer. Identify any primary consumer. A primary consumer is an organism which feeds on a plant's direct. A primary consumer is an organism which feeds on a plant direct. So here, the grasshopper is feeding direct on plants, which is the cabbage. Again, the rabbit is also feeding direct on cabbage. So you are supposed to pick either grasshopper or rabbit as a primary consumer. Okay, then if you look at Roman number 2, construct a food chain using 3 organisms from figure 4.1. So the food chain must always start with the plants. A food chain must always start with a plant. So for you to construct a food chain, you must not leave out cabbage. So in this case, we have going to pick any. What we want is that it has 3 organisms from this food web here. So we want only 3 organisms from this food web. So so for us to have 3 organisms to make a food chain, you can either pick cabbage, rabbit, lion. Okay, there are 3. You even have to show the arrows between the 2 like that. Now in a straight format, you write cabbage here, you write rabbit here with the arrow in words, not symbols. Then you write now the lion that side. Okay, that's how it's supposed to be. If you don't want that one, you can also use cabbage. You can use cabbage, grasshopper, bird. You can use cabbage, rabbit, human being. What is important, the cabbage should always be there. Now this is because the cabbage or plants are the producers. They produce energy for organisms in an ecosystem. Then look at question 3, Roman number 3. Using the food chain in A2, construct a pyramid of energy. Construct a pyramid of energy. So a pyramid of energy is a pyramid which shows the energy levels in each trophic level. It shows the energy present at each trophic level. So to draw or to construct a pyramid of energy, you're going to draw a pyramid like this. So this is going to be your first pyramid with about let's give an example of 100 joules of energy. So it's about 100 joules of energy, and this is cabbage, remember, don't forget. Okay, then followed by this would depend with the food chain. We have used it in question B because we have been told to use the food chain here which I've made. So if you have used, for example, cabbage and grasshopper, then lion, you're going to here to be a rabbit. Now only 10% of energy will be given to the next trophic level. So instead of having 100, the rabbit will have 10. The 10% of 100 is 10. So it will have 10 joules of energy. Okay, and this is a rabbit. And then the last trophic level will only have 1 joule of energy, and this is going to be a lion. It's going to be a lion. So this is a pyramid of energy. It shows the energy present at each trophic level. Okay. Then B, distinguish between a food web and a food chain. Distinguish between a food chain and a food web. A food chain is a linear feeding relationship between organisms in an ecosystem, while a food web is an interlinked food chain. It is made up of the interlinked food chains, feeding relationship among organisms in an ecosystem. So where there are a lot of food chain, like like what is shown in this diagram, this is a food web where it is made up of a lot of food chains. As you can see, this is a food chain here, this is a food chain there, this is a food chain. So a group of interlinked food chains forms a food web. And then a food chain, it is just a linear feeding relationship among organisms in an ecosystem. C, explain why organisms at the end of the food chain have the least amount of energy. So if you were to check in the pyramid of energy which we drew here, you can agree that the trophic level which is at the end has less energy for sure. Now why is it that the organisms at the end of the food chain will have less energy? Now this is because only 10% of energy is passed from one trophic level to the next, and 90% is lost through various processes such as respiration, reproduction, movement, radiation, and many other processes which need energy. So the reason why that these organisms will have less energy is because only 10% of energy from this trophic level will be given to this trophic level. The 90% will be lost away in form of radiation, reproduction, movement, and many other processes that uses energy. So only 10% is transferred from one trophic level to another. Okay. Now the last question of section B, genetics. Pure breeding dwarf garden pear plant were crossed with the pure breeding tall garden pear plants. The resulting offspring were all tall. A, what is meant by pure breeding? Pure breeding is the crossing between organisms which are in homozygous state. So pure breeding is the breeding or crossing between organisms which are in homozygous state, where they have the same type of gene representing a particular trait. Okay, that's the answer for this part. Pure breeding simply means the crossing between organisms which are in homozygous state. Question 2, Roman number 2, use your own symbols. Using your own symbols, state the genotypes of the parent pure breeding dwarf garden pear plant. So for a pure breeding dwarf garden pear plant, you are going to use the small letter T. You are supposed to use your own symbols, but usually the T is used representing for tallness or shortness. So I'm going to use T as my symbol. You're supposed to use your own symbols here. Okay, that's for a dwarf. Then for a pure breeding tall garden pear plant, going to use the capital letters T. Going to use the capital letter T. Okay, so this one's supposed to use the capital letter T. Okay, so we have the capital letter T. Okay, I'll write it here, capital letter T's, like this. I'll write the capital letter T as the gene for a pure breeding tall garden pear plant. Okay. Then using a genetic diagram, show the cross between a dwarf parent and one of the offspring. Okay, so the crossing between the parent and one of the offspring. So here what will happen is, for these two parents, where one is homozygous tall and one is heterozygous tall, short, when you cross these two, what you're going to have is the offspring will all be tall. See that? The capital letter T is dominant over the small letter t. T is representing dwarfness. Capital letter is representing the tallness. So the capital letters are dominant over the small letters. So when those two parents, which are in the question on top here, crosses or breed, they are going to have the offspring which are all tall, which is capital letter T and the small letter t. Now the question is, draw the genetic diagram between the parent dwarf plant and one of the offspring. So we don't want to use these symbols. So what we are going to use is, okay, so we have the parent dwarf and one of the offspring. Now you don't forget to write, you're not supposed to forget to write the phenotype of the parent, genotype of the parent, then now gametes. So me, I'm starting on the gametes. Okay, so gametes, in this case we are talking about the genetic constitution of the parent. So we have one of the offspring which we discovered from the previous diagram to be capital letter T and the small letter t. Then we were crossing between the dwarf parent plant, and we know that the dwarf parent plant will look like that. Then we start crossing. So capital letter T and the small letter t are going to have a capital letter T and the small letter t. We all start by writing the capital letters. Okay, again the capital letter with another T becomes capital letter and the small letter T. Then we have a small letter, we're going to have the two small letters. Then next we have that one, we're also going to have the two small letters like that. That is for that part. So these are the offspring between the one of their offspring as well as the parent dwarf plant, pear plant. Okay. Then distinguish or differentiate between homozygous and heterozygous. Homozygous, this is a state where organisms have the same types of allele or same types of gene representing the particular same types of alleles representing a particular trait. For example, in this case, if you are using the tallness, when they both have the capital letter T, capital letter T, this is the homozygous state because they have the same type of allele controlling the particular trait. While a heterozygous state is the state where organisms have different types of allele controlling the particular trait. So where we have the capital letter T and a small letter T, that is what is called the heterozygous, where they have different genes. The other one is a capital letter, the other one is a small letter if we use the symbols like that. So homozygous state is where organisms have the same type of allele controlling the particular trait, while heterozygous is where an organism has different types of allele controlling the particular trait. Okay, so that's all for today. We have solved the 2015, the whole of section A. I'm hoping to finish the last part in the next video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, especially if it's your first time to watch my YouTube channel. I will appreciate. Thank you. Bye bye.